There is written in the Constitution of the United States that Congress has the right to coin, issue, and regulate the value of money. That's good Americanism, and it's good enough for me. Every politician today in the Democratic or Republican ranks who sits upon one of the thrones of the mighty doesn't believe in that part of the Constitution. They don't want to believe in that part of the Constitution. They believe that the Federal Reserve Bank has the right to coin and regulate the value of money. They're not even Americans, these so-called Democrats and Republicans. And so, Mr. Roosevelt, who was very loquacious in 1933 about driving the money changers out of the temple, is now bent upon another policy. I think driving the workmen out of decent annual wages. As I come before you today, I wish to leave this thought with you, that in each congressional district here in Illinois, we will endorse a candidate who can rise above his party and puts patriotism first.
My dear friends, that among other things in the National Union for Social Justice, we are Christian insofar as we believe in Christ's principle of love your neighbor as yourself, and with that principle, I challenge every Jew in this nation to tell me that he does not believe in it.
Den alten, stolzen Waffenträger unseres Volkes, den ich bin, der traditionsgefestigte politische Führung der Partei treten, und dann werden diese beiden Einrichtungen gemeinsam den deutschen Menschen erziehen und festigen und auf ihren Schultern tragen, den deutschen Staat, das deutsche Reich.
There is no need of communizing all the factories and the fields and the forests and the mines under a new kind of God made of flesh and blood and clay and hatred. When men become so prideful that they believe their destiny is to rewrite the eternal law of God, it's time for their fellow citizens to rise up in their wrath and through the agency of ballots and not bullets to relegate them to the pages of the past.
Therefore, under your congressional district presidents, form your battalions, take up the shield of your defense, unsheathe the sword of your truth, and carry on in Illinois, so that the communists on the one hand cannot scourge us, and that the modern capitalists on the other cannot plague us.
That was Father Coughlin. He was a radio announcer back in the 1930s, probably the most popular radio broadcaster in history. At any particular time, he could be speaking to at least one-third of the entire population of the country. So his voice was heard by many. Now remember him, because we'll come back to him in a moment after we begin with this first ear analysis. First thing we've done is we've drawn a marker over the ear. Now, we've also marked off the areas on the ear where that ear intersects with that marker. Now remember, we're working with old black and white photography. so we're going to have a more of a dulled edge, so you won't be that exact. Plus the non-studio settings of the other one that we're going to show in a minute, you'll see there's a slight difference, but nevertheless you can still see that the structure and everything will match the markers. Let's change the opacity. As you'll see the other ear underneath it. Become visible. You'll notice we're right on with the markings. This ear is a match. Now it's fortunate that we have good samples like this where they're in pretty much the same position and the camera point of view is pretty much the same. So who did these ears belong to? Well, we've discussed this person before in another video of mine, and people are having a hard time understanding how this could be. But in this video we're going to take it a step further and we're going to find exactly who this person really is. You're going to be shocked, I guarantee it. So as you can see, they match. Not only do the ears match, but we have the teeth matching, and everything else matches. Now, you can argue if you want, but there's more evidence that has been kept from us that I'm about to show you that will make this absolutely 100% undeniable, as we're going to find out exactly who Hitler really is. All the images that you see in this video I will make available for download on Walloware 1, and you'll be able to do your own ear evaluations to verify my findings. So as I began researching for this video project, looking specifically at Hitler and the people around that era, I came across Father Coughlin that you saw in the beginning. Something about him struck me as familiar, and maybe this will clue you in to where I went to next.
The presidential election approaches. A Roman Catholic priest, for the first time in American history, is seriously involved in national politics. Come on, popular!
That pose right there was the first one that caught my attention, with the wrist facing outward and the clenched fist. The next one that really caught my attention, you'll see in a moment.
God hates the hypocrite! And as long as you shall permit a little handful.
That one right there with the downward beating of the hands and the sharp motion, that caught my eye as well. Now, if you know anything about Hitler, you know the history about how he had his photographer, Hoffman, record him doing speeches beforehand so he could practice the hand moves and his gestures, so he had everything planned out when he did his speech. This hand gesture, both of those, reminded me completely of Hitler. And here's some comparisons to show you.
Father Charles Edward Coughlin today is far more than just a voluble voice over the radio.
Die Jugend ist uns verschrieben. Es lebe die nationalsozialistische Bewegung. Es lebe Deutschland zu tun. Die höchste Verkörperung.
So when I saw those, I decided to compare Coughlin's ears and Hitler's ears together to do a comparison to see if what I suspected was true, and I'll let you decide. As you can see here, we have 3 ears to evaluate. First thing that we do when we do the evaluation is we draw a grid over the ear. The second thing we'll do is we will draw intersecting points where the ear crosses the lines. Now, as you can see, there's a shadow inside the ear here. You have to be very careful depending upon the light source, what direction it's coming from. Also, depending upon what film they're using and what the technology was at the time this photograph was taken, you're going to have conditions that will change the look of the edge. A softer edge in the more older photographs, a sharper edge in the more modern digital photographs. Now the shadows, you can see this shadow here is being cast from this edge of the ear. So the light source we know is coming from behind the photographer on the right hand side in the direction downward and across the ear. It's casting the shadow. So don't get confused with this shadow being an edge of the ear, because it's not. You can see that the edge is right inside here. Now we'll take this grid and we're going to duplicate it. Now we have two of them now. Same grid, same. Bring it over to this ear. Position it. And you can see we match. The slight difference of the angle of the head throws this one off just slightly, but you can see everything else is a match, so we know that this is the same ear. Now we'll do it again for the third ear. Again, we have another match. We can see that the landmarks of the ear are consistent, so these ears are from the same person. Of these three ears, let's start with the middle one. That ear belongs to Father Coughlin. Now, the second ear belongs to Hitler. The third ear belongs to Kermit Roosevelt. Now, just wait. It gets a whole lot better than just that. Remember Kermit, because we're going to come back to him in a moment. But first I wanted to explain one of the photographs that I just used. The photograph of Father Coughlin. In the examination here, we flipped it. So the ear that you saw was not the right ear for the photograph, because you don't have the same ear on both sides. But what you do have are the landmarks of the ears stay the same, and the landmarks are the genetic markers that make up your ear. They will stay consistent throughout, so you can see the genetic traits passed down from individual father, son, or mother, daughter, and you can follow that trait. They stay with the bloodline. They change slightly, but the markers will still be there. So this is why we can see that the soft tissue area of the lobe has a small crease in it in Kermit's ear, but not in Father Coughlin's, because it's on the other side of his head. We can also see the lack of crease in the Hitler photograph because of the fact that that type of film used does not show the type of detail that was used in the film on Kermit. As we can see here, further evidence that Kermit Roosevelt was Hitler and Walt Disney, along with Father Coughlin. We can see the glabella, the part between the eyebrows, is consistent. Of course, we have the eyebrows, they are consistent as well. We can see the shape of the ear is consistent. This one's being pushed out by the glasses, but we can still see it's very consistent. The philtrum underneath the nose, the evidence is quite clear. I wanted to put together this brief video to review the find that I made on Hitler's house and Walt Disney's house. Now this video is not going to go into the depth of the fact that Walt Disney was actually Adolf Hitler and ultimately was Kermit Roosevelt. You can find those facts in my other video. This video will cover just the home and a few small points about the surrounding evidence that supports it. So again, if you are unfamiliar with what we're speaking about, please watch my other videos where I go into the depth about the ear, biometrics, facial landmarks, handwriting analysis, and of course all the other supporting roles that individuals in Hollywood at that time played. just a little bit of history on this find. When I was working on this for my other documentary, the original images that you see from the archives that claim to be, of course, Hitler's home, Disney played a little bit of an optical trick on you, and they do this a lot where they put the evidence right in front of you, but they change it enough where they can sit back and laugh at you as you don't realize what it is, but it's right in your face. There was always something about the image that gave me a gut feeling that there was just something wrong with it, and I couldn't figure it out until I was working on something else and realized that they had flipped the image, but not just flipped it vertically, they flipped it horizontally as well. So once you correct the image, you can overlay the homes on top of each other and find that they are a match. This is Hitler's home. Underneath it we have Walt Disney's home. We'll change the opacity on the top layer, and you will see the house matches even the driveway. They just modified the driveway at the end when they built his brother's house at the bottom here so they could share the end of the driveway. The street wasn't here at the time when it was the Hitler house. And there was no neighbors, of course, either. There was just a few back here. Those houses have been modified, they've been updated, and they're larger now. But we can see, as we scroll to Disney's home, same driveway, and we go back to Hitler's. We can see the slight changes to the house that they made. They've extended and made this larger here, and they shifted the pool as well as changed the shape of it from a rectangle to a nice curved edge. A little bit of a remodel. Give them some more room out here. Now right here is where the large stairs were that you see in the Hitler videos. They removed that and they changed the driveway so you could actually exit the house here, and this was the front of the house instead of over in here. This is the grand hall that you see, and these are some of the windows that are in it. As we see, the same windows are in Disney's home. This is a photograph from his recent sale of the home. It sold for $3.2 million. Same windows are still there. Now there's a rather interesting window that looks out towards the pool that they just released, and I didn't see this photograph before when I looked at the sale of the home. We can see that there is clearly a German crest on the window. Now remember that, because in my upcoming video you're going to see why that's so important and the ties that Hitler has, or Walt Disney, to royalty. We can see the curved shape of the pool. They've changed that, but we can still see the edge, this wall that is still here. And of course they've made the house much bigger now. So you can see clearly there's a row of trees. There's the indentation where they are. You can clearly see that the houses are the same. Now, that means that every official that you saw on those homemade videos by Hitler or Eva, whatever, every one of those officials that supposedly visited Hitler's home are fake. They are actors. We've identified several of them from the golden era of Hollywood. So keep this in mind when you look at the rest of the information, and know for a fact that Walt Disney played the role of Adolf Hitler. Now, like I said about Kermit Roosevelt, he joined the British military during World War II. Now, why would the son of a president American president join the British military? Well, there you go. The mountains that you see in the background, we're talking about Disney now, remember. It's not difficult for them to mask those in. That is a very simple procedure. Especially when you have a straight line edge like a wall, that makes it much easier to do. If you find the information in this video useful, please support Wellaware One. You can do so at the website. Remember, all the content that you see here is original content that comes from my investigations. You won't find this anywhere else on the web.